Hi, Shelley from Spin Cushions here. This video is going to show you how to make this square Tasman from my Siren's Atlas collection. I really love this one. It's quite simple but starts a little bit differently to what you might be used to. Okay, so no magic circle this time. This time we're going to chain 12. So attach your yarn to your hook with a slip knot and chain 12. You don't want to do them too tight, just normal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, making sure that your chain is all facing the right way. Okay, you can see all your V's, not looking at bumps. It doesn't have a twist in it. You want it all nice and flat. If you don't do this bit well, then it's not going to look best as it can. So, what I'm going to do is twist around that loop so they're all facing the same way, and I'm going to go down and join with a slip stitch into that bottom loop over those top 2 loops of that first chain. So, and I'm also going to crochet over that end as I go, so make sure that's tucked up in there. Okay, so there's our circle. So that's actually round 1. Okay, round 2 is a chain 3 starting chain, or a false stitch, false treble or false double, depending on where you are. Sorry, I'll just get that tail out of my way. There we go. Okay, now we have to do another a treble, UK terms, double US terms, in that same place that we joined with our slip stitch. See? And again, I'm going to go over that tail. And we're going to do 2 stitches in the chain all the way around, and each time we do it we're just going into that bottom loop. So I sort of angle my hook towards me or down to get in there. Sorry, in shot would be a good idea. 1, 2. Now don't be alarmed if they all look a little bit big, because as you work your way around you'll notice that the one before magically gets smaller. So 2 into every one of these little bottom loops. It is a little bit fiddly, but I think it's worth the effort. And this is the only round where you have to do it in anyway, so it's doubly fiddly when you're working through a camera, I can tell you that much. 1, at least the second one's easy. 2, so we do that all the way around, and I'll come back and show you when we're joining up. Okay, I'm almost finished. It's a good idea to count as you go, because you need to have 24 stitches at the end of this round. I've got 22, I need 2 more. So that last little chain that you work into can kind of disappear, but you still do need to work into that last chain. It's 23 stitches and 24. Oops, split the yarn. Okay, now we join with a slip stitch to our first stitch. That might be the top of the 3rd chain if you did a starting chain, or if it's in the top of a false stitch like I did, it will be into there. With a slip stitch. Okay, so there we go. That is it, round 2 done. Okay, so now we're going straight into chaining. We're not doing any other stitches, we're just going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to skip 1 stitch. So that's the stitch we just worked into. This is the 1 stitch we're skipping, and we're going to slip stitch into this one. And we're going to repeat that 10 more times. So we chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, skip 1 stitch, slip stitch. Okay, I'll meet you back around here. Okay, so we're almost back to the start again. Now if you're going to change colour here, chain 5 and join with a slip stitch back in that first slip stitch there. We're not going to chain 5 because we want to finish up in the end of a chain 5 space. So what I'm going to do is going to chain 2, and I'm going to join with a treble crochet UK, single crochet, double crochet US into that first slip stitch. So I'm making a stitch in that slip stitch. So what that's done is it's put us at the point of one of these loops instead of being down here. So now I don't have to slip stitch up here or anything like that to start the next round. We're actually in the right spot. But that's only if you're changing colour, not changing colour. If you are changing colour, chain 5 and join it up here and then attach your new colour to any of these points. Okay, so the next instructions say to do a double crochet over the joining stitch. Sorry, a double crochet over the joining treble if you're UK, or a single crochet over the joining double if you're US. All that means is you're doing a double crochet in this big hole, or single crochet. Okay, then you're going to skip this stitch here, with the slip stitch is what we're skipping. Then in this big loop, okay, I'll do UK terms first. We're going to do a double crochet, half treble, treble, chain 1, treble, half treble, double crochet. US terms, we're going to do a single crochet, half double, double, chain 1, double, half double, single. So let's just do that. Little stitch, half stitch, full stitch, chain 1, full stitch, half stitch, little stitch. Okay, then we skip the slip stitch again, and in this big 5 chain space we're going to do little stitch, chain 2, little stitch. Okay, so we repeat that all the way around, so that we're going to have 6 of these and 6 of these all the way around. I'll come back and show you what to do when we join. Okay, so I've done all my repeats, so now I just need to finish off, which is doing a stitch in the same space as our first stitches, which is in this big hole here. Double crochet UK, single crochet US. Then I need to chain 1 and join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US if you're keeping on with this colour. If you're changing colour, chain 2 and join with a slip stitch here. Now you might like to stick a little bit of yarn in underneath that join in that pretend 2 chain space until you understand how it all works. Okay, so we're going to start off by doing chain 3 starting chain, or false stitch if you prefer, false treble or false double, treble UK, double US. Then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip all of those stitches and do a double crochet UK, single US in that 1 chain space. Then we're going to chain 3 again, skip 4 stitches, and in here we're going to do a treble UK, chain 2, treble, or double US, chain 2, double in that 2 chain space. Then we're going to chain 3 and do the single stitch. So we're doing that pattern in the little 2 chain spaces and just a single stitch in the point of the big 1 chain spaces. I'll come back over here and show you how to finish. Okay, so I've almost finished my repeats. I just need to do chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Now I need to do a treble UK, double US in the same space as our first stitch, which is actually where that scrap of yarn is if you're doing it. It's in that fake 2 chain space that we made. And then we are going to chain 1, if you are continuing on with this colour, this is chain 1, stitch has gone around the side. Because I'm using a false stitch, I can go through the 2 top loops as I normally would and join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US. If you're finishing this colour here, 2 chain, join with a slip stitch here. Okay, so if you wish you can move this stitch marker up into that hole. I think you probably understand what's happening now though. Alright, next round is a nice and easy one, round 6. We're going to do a double crochet UK, single crochet US over the joining stitch, which is just in where that stitch is. A stitch in the next stitch, and 3 stitches in here, the 3 chain space, 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip that stitch. We're going to do 3 stitches in the next 3 chain space. We're going to do a stitch in this stitch, then we're going to do 2 stitches in the 2 chain space. So that's basically our repeat. We're going to skip those little short stitches. We're going to do a stitch in every long stitch, 3 in every 3 chain space, and 2 in every 2 chain space. I will come back and meet you back here. Okay, I am back around again, and my last instruction is to do a stitch in the same space as our first stitches, as where that stitch marker is, and join with a slip stitch to the first stitch. It's the same instruction if you're changing colours as well. Now I recommend you to do your stitch count now to make sure you're on track, because the next round we're squaring off, and if it's not right, it's not going to square off properly. Okay, so the next round, round 7. Chain 3, starting chain or false stitch, like I like to do. Now we're going to do a treble UK WS in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. We're going to do a half in the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. We're going to do small in the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we go back up again. 3 halves. 1, 2, 3. Then 2 full stitches. 1, 2. So that's the side that we've just worked. Now our corner is a stitch, treble UK WS, chain 3, and another stitch in that same stitch. Okay, so if you've done everything right, you should be able to come back here to finish off with no spare stitches. I'll meet you back there. Okay, I've almost finished my last repeat, so I just have 2 more stitches to go on this side. Trebles UK, doubles US. It's good, I don't have any extra stitches or any missing. So now I need to do a stitch in the same stitch as our slip stitch, or same stitch as our first stitch is in, which is where the slip stitch was. So just follow it down to the base. You see that little loop in the hole that's directly under there is where you want to go. Okay, now if you're finishing this colour here, chain 3 and join with a slip stitch to your first stitch, but we're not. We are going to chain 1 and join with a half stitch to our first stitch, and that will place us as if we are in the middle of that 3 chain space, ready to start our next round. I don't have to slip stitch or anything to get to the right spot. Okay, now we're not quite square yet, so the next round will make us really square. Alright, so firstly we need to chain 3 or false stitch. Then we're going to chain 1 and do a stitch over the joining stitch, so back into this big hole. So trebles UK, doubles US. Alright, now we're going to do a treble in the next stitch, treble UK, double US. We're going to do a half in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2, and we're going to do double UK, single US in the next 10 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2 halves, 1, 2, a full stitch in the last one. Now in the corner we are going to do 3 stitches separated by a 1 chain space, so stitch, chain, stitch, chain, stitch, all triples UK, doubles US. So 1 stitch, 1 chain, 1 stitch, 1 chain, 1 stitch. So that's our corner pattern in this round, and that's our side. So I will come back and meet you back here. Okay, so I've finished my repeats now. It's nice and square. I just need to finish off by putting 1 stitch in the same space as our first stitches, which is this big hole here. And oops, chain 1, join with a slip stitch. This is the same whether you're changing colour or not. There we go. Okay, we've just got one more round to go, which is fairly easy. It's just a double crochet round or single crochet round if you're US. So we're doing 1 stitch in this same stitch we slip stitched into, a stitch in the 1 chain space, then a stitch in each stitch along the side, there should be 18 stitches I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 16, 17, 18, 1 in the 1 chain space. Then in the next stitch we're going to do 1 stitch, 2 chain, 1 stitch. Okay, I'll come back and show you how to finish off. Okay, here I am almost back at the end. I've just done my 18 stitches. Now I've got to do 1 stitch in the 1 chain space. Now I have to do a stitch in the same space as the last one, which is that single stitch from the round before. Now I'm going to chain 2 and join with a slip stitch to that first stitch. And I'm going to cut my yarn and weave in the end later. I'm sure you know how to do that. Oops, wasn't very clever. Anyway, I'll fix that up. Okay, so I can do with a bit of a block. Again, it's going to be slightly larger once I've blocked it. This is blocked, this isn't. You can see. And this is Bendigo Woolen Mills cotton. This is Cascade Ultra Pima cotton. So they're slightly different yarns and they will give a slightly different result. If this pattern turns out a little bit too big, just leave off the last round. If it's too small, add another round, and that should sort out any size differences you had, but it will block into shape quite well. So there you go. Yes, so there we have Tasman. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to see what you make. See you later.